Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Now today's make is making multiples of scrungies. Now it's craft season here in England, so everyone I know is either doing loads of Christmas things, and this is Christmas fabric, ready for craft shows. Now I always like the idea of making multiple things. I just think it's quite funny and the quickest way to do it. So here we are, we have a metre of fabric, and we are going to just quickly measure up how much we need for our scrungies. Now what I have here is elastic, we're going to need that. I've got some string just to aid with turning inside out, and a knitting needle for the same reason. It's not my strongest point, I don't know why. I've got my sewing machine all set up, and I've got a pair of scissors and a tape measure. So let's lay this fabric out. So what I've done is I've folded it once, twice, so that it's a quarter folded. So there's 4 strips of fabric. I think if I folded it again, then it would be too thick for my craft scissors to work properly. And if I only folded it twice, I'd probably go wonky. Now scrungies need to be 3 inches. So I'm going to measure that up on there. I've got my finger on it, and then I'm just going to take a little snip. Now this fabric, folded into 4, is going to be 10¼ inches. Now that's the right length. So without even trying, I have enough material to do 4 already. Now the elastic. Now I think the best hair ties are the ones that are just the right size for your wrist. If they're too big so that they get in the way, then, or they're too small so they're uncomfortable, we tend to put them down and then we lose them. So I've got my wrist here. Now this is the tricky bit really. What I'm going to do is just to measure my wrist. Now I think that's coming out at sort of 7 inches, 6½ inches. So that's quite good to know. So I'm going to stick with 7. And I have my elastic here. So if I cut these pieces of elastic into 7, or even 7 with a bit of tension on them, so that they're comfortable, then that's going to be grand. So let me cut that off. So there we are, 7 on the tape measure, and then we can pull that quite comfortably to the end, and it's no longer than 7 and it's not going to be too tight. So I'm going to do a few of those, and also I do need to cut my fabric. So we've already worked out that I can do 4 from a strip of 3 inches. So that means in the course of a yard I can do 10 strips. So 10 times 4 is 40. So I have 40 hair ties out of a yard of fabric. So yeah, and if you sold them for 50p, then that's quite a lot of money. That's £20. So, you know, it depends how much you pay for your fabric, of course. But if you think about it, I paid £3.99 for this fabric from just a local shop. Obviously, the prices are slightly different in England, and yeah. So we've got more than 300% profit if we just sold them for 50p. Okay, so yes, but you can do your own pricing, I'm shushing. So what I'm going to do now is I have my bits of elastic. I've cut my 3-inch strip of fabric into 4 pieces. I've cut several strips of elastic into 7 inches of strip. So I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to take a piece of string and I'm going to place that on the fold. I'm going to take the string and I'm just going to do a couple of stitches just to hold it there. Now we will be removing this string afterwards, we don't need it, it's literally just to save time. So there we go, a couple of stitches on the string, sort of at the end, out of the way. I'll put the string in the fold so it's well out of the way. I'm going to take a piece of elastic and I'm literally going to place that in the line of stitches. Now give it a go. If it gets pushed out of the way by the foot, then what I'm going to do is just lift the foot. I'm going to put a couple of stitches on the elastic so I can pull them tight, and then I'm going to sew over the two ends of the fabric and the elastic. Now I can hear when the sewing machine is hitting the elastic and when it's not, so I'm kind of sewing with my ears as well as my eyes. So yes, that's good. It's not fair, is it? The sun came out and I panicked. Yes, I have trouble. You can't see a thing now. Okay, let's see if I can adjust that. That's grand. Can't see a thing. Okay, I'm going to pause. So welcome back. I've rethreaded the machine and I think I've adjusted the light. I do have a lot of trouble with the light. Yeah, and I did a couple whilst I was offline. So let's pick up. I'm just putting the elastic on a certain amount of tension and making sure that I hit the thread each time. I'm taking my next piece. I have my next bit of string and I'm folding it on the fold line, and then I'm folding the fabric in half, right side to right side, taking the string, and I'm just going to put a couple of stitches on there. And then I'm going to carry on sewing. So we've left one, we're now on the other. I've just gone over the string once, a couple of reverse stitches just to keep it in place, and a couple more stitches, a piece of elastic, lifting up there, and then away I go. So got everything in place now, a little bit of tension on the elastic and making sure that I sew the elastic each time. Every stitch goes through the elastic, that's the key. Lovely, I know, how easy is that? So just sewing off the end and there we go. Now, I know, I hope you can see this. What I'm going to do is, if I've got a row, I'm just going to make use of the thread cutter on the end of my sewing machine. Let's get rid of the sewing machine. And now I need to do, next job, least favourite job for Fiona, because she's not very good at it, turning these inside out. Now I have my knitting needle, I have my string, I have fully functioning fingers. It's not like I've got arthritis, there should be no problem at all. I'm going to pull with my string, I'm going to pull the fabric over the top, I'm going to push the fabric with my knitting needle. What I don't want is to get too much at the point of the turning before I can turn it. So there is a lot of pulling rather than pushing. Okay, so halfway there, and push up the end, pull the string, and it should just pop out. And if you've stitched it very well, then you'll need to trim off those ends of the string. So next one, I've got the end with the sticky out bit of string, folding it over, push that with the needle. I'm just getting it started. Because once it starts, it's actually quite good, you know, and it's quite rewarding when it goes, you know, there's a sort of ping feeling. But obviously, okay, take up some of the excess, push a bit more through. Now, I must admit, I am using the pointy end. This is because I've got very thick fabric, and it's speed as well for the camera. So, you know, if I was doing this for real, then I probably take a bit more care. So, just pull a bit more through, pull the end over the end, and pop. Yes, I suppose if you've got somebody that likes undoing knots in your family, you can just give them a handful to do for you. So yeah, and then we can either give it a good hearty tug and the string will fall off, or we can trim the string. So that's that done. I'm not going to do all of them because otherwise I'll just embarrass myself really. Now I have the salvage on both ends of, so some of them do. I'm going to pinch them, so I've pulled them apart, and I'm going to tuck in one end. Now if you've got a large salvage like this one, then maybe you should trim it, but yeah, or you can make use of it, which is what I'm doing. I still have my knitting needle to hand, so I'm just pushing that down. So now what I've got is one end with a neat folded edge. I'm going to take the other end and I'm going to push that in there. So I'm going to push okay, so I've got my hair tie under there. I'm going to push the first half of the hair tie in there and tuck in my ends and stitch. I've got my next hair tie. I'm going to wrap it round there. I'm going to push in my ends and push in my loose fluffy bits and any flaky sort of threads that I've got, and then I can literally just stitch. Now it is a bit more difficult tucking it in whilst it's on the sewing machine, but what happens is you sew them off the sewing machine. So let's go like that. Ooh, it's a bit thick. Come on, machine. My machine says it wants a new needle. So then I would get the next one, wrap it round the neck of the machine, and then literally, and what I'm doing is I'm sewing off. Now some machines are better at sewing without actual fabric in there than others. I think they call it chain stitch. This is just a basic machine, and it will do 2 or 3 stitches without actually any fabric there, but it won't do many more than that. Alright, next job. Tidying up these loose thread ends. Love it or hate it, but it's got to be done. It just gives the whole thing a lot more professional look. And yeah, there we go. We've got our ends folded and stitched in, and we've got our elastic, and we've got our fabric, and there we go. So we've got our scrunchies ready to sell at our craft fair. And once you get going, you'll be amazed at how fast you go. Alright, thank you for indulging me in making this video. Please like, share and subscribe.